Hey, hello to everybody. We just wait 1 second that everybody comes in. Good morning to everybody. Nice to have you here again, and thanks for being with us again for these Palladio talks. We are quite a nice group today. I really appreciate that you take your time to stay with us, and we can, talk a little bit about architecture and Palladio in this time. It's a nice way to stay in contact. Since I don't know most of you, let me just introduce myself. My name is Maria Vittoria Grassi, and I'm one of the owner of Grassi Pietre, and we are based in Italy. And I'm talking from the headquarters in Nanto, from our new showroom. Let me just introduce you also to Giacomo, who is basically the person who is thinking all about this webinar. And now I just give the lead to Giorgio Valentini, who is in New York, near New York, and he is the one who will describe this webinar to you. Giorgio, to you.
Thank you, Maria Vittoria. Thank you, everybody, for participating. And yeah, I mean, it's intimidating to have such a big group. Let's see what I can do. So let me share my screen so that we can get this started. Let me know when you can see it.
We're okay.
Just a few housekeeping rules. At this point, I mean, there's too many to do a sort of a formal conversation on the topics. So we ask if you have any question on anything that you want to know, just text it into the chat so that we can sort of respond you there. There should be a chat somewhere down in the bottom, and typically I ask everybody maybe if you can tell us where you are logging in from and tell us what's your weather, so you sort of warm up while we're doing the things. Here in New York, it's a beautiful sunny days, a bit cold. It's Friday afternoon, so I mean Friday morning for us, so it's not too bad, and looking forward to my tennis game tomorrow. So just to get started, we'll be talking about, the seminar says Palladio the Builder. The idea was to, after we analyzed Palladio through our, I think, 12 webinar started in May, it's like, first of all, we kind of run out of idea of what to say about this guy. The other thing is that, we want to sort of look at this historical personality with the challenges that we have nowadays. I mean, he was an architect, and like many of you, is facing problem with budget, with money, with clients, and value engineering and so forth. Giacomo, which is the one that is the mastermind behind everything, sort of highlight 6 of his main project. We will start with Villa Trissino, but we will touch also Villa Madama, which is down in Rome, not his villa, but his inspiration. Villa Godi, but we also will touch Villa Piovene, and then Villa Pisani, Villa Gazzotti, Trissino, and finish with Palazzo Chiericati. After that, we will give you an idea of the Grassi interpretation of an existing building in Italy for now. Hopefully, we'll have the opportunity to have more of this project and the opportunity to talk also for project here in the United States. Just to, like I said, as a little recap, we actually have been receiving a different question and email of where they can find the webinar. So we posted those, the previous one, into website, the Grassi website, and the Atlantic Link, which is my agency, my company. Maybe Giacomo, if you can share the URL in the chat, so that these answers this question has been answered. Another point, and then I will go into the webinar, is we announced a few webinar, maybe last webinar, I don't remember, a sort of a ranking system, and this actually gave us the opportunity to check. We had 350, a little bit less, because of course, there's some introductory here, but we have about less than 300, just shy of 350 unique visits to our webinar, and some of them actually are very repetitive visits. So we created this award competition for those of you that stay with us and refer us to some of your colleagues or friends. And of course, an even higher incentive to those of you that can give us some projects or something that we can work on. The idea is we'll take the first 3 to a trip to the quarries in conjunction with the Marmomac, which hopefully this year we will have. I mean, we're talking about vaccines, so the news are actually a bit more positive. We hope that 2021 is going to be more of a normal year. So that's kind of the idea behind that. The concept is, of course, I'm not going to share the names and for respecting your privacy. We will email the first 10 and keeping you updated where you are in the ranking throughout the all of next year's. But at the same time, we want to give the first 50 some sort of a little goodie bag, and we have prepared something, just a physical gift. But in order to give it to you, we will need your physical address. So, I mean, if you are happy and okay with sharing that, we will mail you something towards the end. So that being said, let's dive into our characters. Palladio was first known as Pietro della Gondola, and he started as a stonemason. He never really actually became an architect from academic perspective, but he was named architect. Here we have a little painting about him and the statue that is in Piazza dei Signori in Vicenza. Then we cannot talk about Palladio without mentioning Gian Giorgio Trissino, which has been his mentor. He was probably one of the most prominent figures I have studied. Was a great diplomat, a political speaker, was in contact with the most famous person of the time, such as Niccolò Machiavelli, Ludovico Ariosto, Raffaello, Pietro Aretino, Cesare Trivulzio, I don't know how many popes, Emperor Charles V of Habsburg, and of course, it was also the ambassador of the Habsburg, the Venice Republic, and the papacy. It's probably like saying that somebody today is the ambassador for the United States, China, and United Europe. So how more can you achieve? So we'll discuss, I think we did discuss more into Jefferson, so I don't want to spend too much on this, but it's just such a prominent figures that in Palladio education that we cannot ignore this character. According to the tradition, the two met in the Trissino Villa while Palladio was working on that in the construction of what was Villa Cricoli. So we'll see it. This is the location where Villa Cricoli is, and Villa Trissino, actually, in locality of Cricoli. Those year was about to be renovated, and according to the literature, was the passion for art and culture in the total sense that are sort of in a basic of exchange between the two, these two gentlemen, Palladio and Trissino. He was often going to his villa and he was talking to the mason, and apparently with Palladio, with Gian Antonio, with Palladio was the one that he entertained the most, and he saw potential. So potential in this stonemason. So he was the first that took him to under his arm. He took it down to Rome, personally introduced it to many different figures, and particularly the work of Greek and Roman architecture. Trissino, like any person of those calibers, definitely was well acculturated and was a person of immense knowledge, going in particularly the Greek and the Latin culture, but he was specialized in all sorts of aspects. It was this humanistic concept and culture that gave to Palladio a completely different ball game. Before, the architect was considered just the technical aspects of construction. The architect didn't have to do anything more than just figuring out how to build things. And Palladio took this concept to the different level. Again, just because of this knowledge. So let's talk a little bit about the villa and the experience of Trissino in Rome. We'll say that Trissino was inside the close circles of the popes, the Medici, and he also met Raffaello. And these already introduced the concept of copying architectures. We'll see that many projects, have been copied by the Romans, by the Greek, but one of the most famous one is actually Villa Madama. Villa Madama is a very important one. Let's finish a little bit for a second also the concept of architecture, and I want to introduce the first concept of restoration, because Trissino acquired this building, which was actually a Gothic castle. And you can see that they have a couple of towers. And through Palladio employer, because according to literature, Palladio was not yet the architectural record, but his employer were on this villa. But definitely Palladio was very well involved in the construction. But anyway, we see this, the first concept of restoration, where Trissino is taking an existing building and is renovating the building to the needs of his current situation. The layout of the villa already sees a lot of the influence on Palladio, and in particularly the dimension of the rooms and the shapes, where he's following this proportion of 1:1, 2:3, 1:2. Identify this pattern that will become a key theme in most of the Palladian design systems. The construction was completed in 1538. And then it's been reworked in the 18th century by Ottone Calderari. And then in the 20th century, the second campaign of work also erased some of the original Gothic factory themes. So again, we'll see more and more that like renovation throughout centuries, can happen. And we will see also another situation where the reverse of renovation, so like the demolishing and the ruin actually sometimes happen over time. So now that we'll look at the Villa Trissino, let's go into where all this inspiration came from. And this is Villa Madama. Villa Madama is located on the hills of Monte Mario. This is Monte Mario, is the highest hill in Rome. But it's, and looking at the picture, you will probably think it's the middle of nowhere, but we are actually a walking distance from the Tiber River, and we'll see again why close to the river, but also very close to the Vatican. This was being erected by Papacy Leon X, but actually was strongly pushed by his cousin, the Cardinal Giulio de' Medici. He wanted to have a mansion where he could have invite guests and host parties, and the original plan was actually so much bigger than what it actually is. The villa was supposed again to get inspiration from the ancient thermal of the Greeks, and at the same time the Forum of the Romans, and you will see why of this. The architecture has those shapes. And all of these are actually inspired by Raffaello, which we think, we always conceive Raffaello as a painter, but you can see here, this one of his paintings, and definitely was the most famous of this, of his arts. But like a personality of the time, when you are like Leonardo, for example, when you are knowledgeable on one art, you are certainly well versed in many other arts. So as much as Raffaello became more famous as a painter, he definitely has skills of an architect, probably better than many of today's architects. You can see this painting has more, sorry, I'm looking sideways, I'm not looking at the camera because sometimes I need to look at what I'm talking about. You can see that this painting, especially the top and the background here, has more of an architectural design than the artistic design of where, only this bottom part can be seen more of an artistic one. You see, the linearity of the line, all converging to the center, and everything sort of being the centerpiece of the paintings. So the same images are actually, the same lines are actually what we can see in this villa. These are the arches, like I said, that were sort of reproduced the Roman bath and the Roman temples. And in front of this, the garden. This is actually a garden, an elevated garden. There's a lower garden here, so we are a different story level. So this has been an example that has been copied throughout all the Renaissance and the construction of the villa. Yes.
I'm sorry, Giorgio, I'm sorry. I think there's some problem. I can see the slides that you're showing, but I don't understand if everybody is seeing that. If you can just tell us, I see that somebody is telling that he's not seeing the photos, if there is any kind of problem here.
I saw some chat coming in, but I can't.
No, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. I think there was some. Okay, sorry. I saw some messages that were telling me that it was a problem. Sorry. Okay.
No problem. So now we are going to our second villa, and you can see the proximity of a river, and we are in, this is Villa Godi, situated in Lonedo, Lugo di Vicenza. I believe there's also proximity to Giacomo residence, so he can probably fill you in if you need anything more to know on the villa. Why the proximity to the river? First of all, and again, in the sailing along the canal is where we show more of this, but back then, the transportation of the material was the highest cost in the construction. So it was very important to have the job site as close as possible to the rivers. Villa Madama was kind of a little exception, was actually on the hills, but that was commissioned by the Pope. So, you know, they had definitely the money to afford things that the typical consumer or the typical customer that is building his own villa cannot have. And in particular, this one, we are talking about a villa that was commissioned by the private individuals. So here budget is limited. These are the brothers Girolamo, Pietro, and Marcantonio Godi. They began the construction in 1537, and ended in 1542. And had subsequent modification in the entrance, in the back garden. So again, we'll see in this villa a lot of different restoration. You can see here these porches that has been closed, and many also of the window have been modified. But Palladio expertise was to find a good architectural solution at low cost, and we'll have some example later on. And I think this is what basically all of you are challenging when you know, you have a limited budget, and the material that I'm presenting is always too expensive. Every time I'm presenting something, it's like I need something cheaper. I need something cheaper. Anyway. This is, again, something that was back then a problem. The other important part of this is that Palladio was not yet as famous, and he got this project thanks to Trissino, that knew the Godi brother and suggested them to commission the work to Palladio. So also we'll see the importance of word of mouth that is so important today, is to have the good customer that can afford your project, but at the same time to refer to the customer, the good architect and the good supplier that can deliver the project for what was your expectation. We see here the drawings in the 4 books of architecture. So first of all, like I said, this was not the first independent assignment of Palladio, but Palladio strongly influenced the work and was pretty much in charge of all of this, although it wasn't commissioned directly to him. And also, Villa Godi marks the initial stage of an attempt of new construction, the new residence in the countryside, where basically they intertwine the theme of the villa, so inviting the guest and have the pleasure of enjoying your residence, as well as being an actual working site. So, the construction of the barchesse where you can store your tools and the shelter the animals and the so again is a villa on the countryside that also needs to have the function to work and to generate income to sustain. The other important part is that in this phase and pretty much in all the career of Palladio, he was not just an architect drawing and commissioning and sending the project to the general contractor, but he was the general contractor and the project manager himself. He was not only the one that drew, but he was making sure that it was built to the specification, and also was actually keeping the accountability of the job site. Here we see, other details of the villa, and all of this villa has been done with the Pietra di Vicenza, which is the stone from our quarry, versus the balauster here, and some of the decoration were done with the Pietra di Nanto, which is a very similar stone in a quarry which pretty much exhausted, but we can still get something out of this. Villa Piovene, we just briefly touched this because first of all, it's 200 yards away from Villa Godi, and technically it's not a Palladian villa, and definitely Palladio. It's unclear whether Palladio worked on that. There's certainly some of his influence and some of his styles, but in our discovery research, it seems that Palladio did work on the villa, but he didn't want to present it as his work because it was too close to another of his customers. And everybody, you don't want to be, sort of copying and replicate your work. You want to make it kind of more unique to your customers. So, if you work on that, it certainly kept it very quiet and very under the radars, which is, something that we have to do it. All of us nowadays, we want to have our prestige as important customer, but at the same time, everybody needs to make a living and need to work like every others. We go to Villa Pisani, and again, just to give you the reference here, Villa Pisani, we selected this one. First of all, it's different from Villa Pisani Astra. Here we are in Villa Pisani in Lonigo. Pisani is a very common last name, sort of like Johnson or Smith here in the United States. So we find many. And this thought as a country villa, again, was near the River Gua, a very strategic point overlooking the road, again, for the connection, but at the same time for the luxury of the villa. Here, Palladio actually has a little bit of a turning point, because now his customers are no longer the affluent tradesmen from Vicenza, but they start to interact with customers from Venice. So definitely much richer, more aristocratic, and has a little bit more money that he can afford to spend on his project. At the same time, he has to keep up with the taste and the level of this more educated consumer that he needs to deal with. And here are the discussion and his treatise in the 4 books of architecture. And again, we'll see that even in this villa, he has this, the addition of the barchesse and the different detail. This is the back of the villa. Typical element of Palladian villa is the elevation for a couple of different reasons. Once, to give a little bit more of importance, sort of put the main villa, the facade, on a stage, but also for functional reason, because we are in proximity of river. Often you might have some flooding. So yeah, you might probably lose some of the perishable that you keep in the basement, but you don't ruin the main floor of the villa. Aeration and ventilation is helping keeping the villa, in a healthier condition. So this is an architectural trick that created aesthetics as well as function to his buildings. Then we go to Villa Gazzotti, again, close to rivers. And Villa Gazzotti, we're going actually here seeing the reverse, from a very prestigious villa to a sort of degraded villa over time. Has been tampered related to agriculture, has been inhabited for years, and they kind of appear in a state of decay. First of all, Gazzotti was not an aristocratic of origin, but was a culture man, passionate about music, and he wanted to do more for himself. He was definitely very rich to afford to commission now Palladio, that already became a famous architect, and to commission a project that, certain magnitude. But in the 1550, had the wrong speculation on the duty of salt. They basically fall into misery. And we'll see that, first of all, Palladio loses customer in the middle of the construction. And I think that's here also another reason where we can see an analogy with, hopefully not often, some of you experience where your customer is defaulting, is going bankrupt, and the project is halfway, and you also have to figure out another way of finishing the construction. So find a different customer, reselling the project basically in a different way to somebody else, refinding the finances and all those issues that are related there. The structure of the building, long and shallow, with the composite order that surround the entire height. The center loggia is strongly influenced also by the Palazzo del Tè, which is in Mantova. And again, this is like many other Palladio buildings, is incorporated into pre-existing structure. So at the same time, we saw here, the decay, but at the same time, the renovation of what it was at the beginning, something else. Here are some more details and how the project was supposed to be. This staircase was supposed to be all the way throughout the facade, and because again, money issues has been shrunk to a smaller one. There's so much to say about this villa, but I see that the clock is limiting. So let me jump forward to Villa Trissino. We are in Meledo di Sarego, again, always close to Vicenza and still on the River Gua. Here, what we have left is basically the only surviving part of the project are the Barchesse of Villa Trissino. In the 4 books of architecture, Palladio claimed to have begun a villa factory for the brother in Meleto, Ludovico and Francesco. So again, villa factory, because in his idea, the building are supposed to be also generating income and support the owners somehow. What is very interesting here is the columns that are made in stone instead of bricks, which he used to do to save money. In this case, the stone, because it's very close to the quarry, so at this point, the cost of transportation is not the cost of the raw material that we might think nowadays, but the cost of transportation of the raw material to the job site make this affordable. So again, the creativity of the architect of using what's available and what's best for the customer, and highlighting the project in the best possible way. In many other situations, and typical of Palladio, which is sort of contradicting to what we are doing because we sell stone, I would like to say that he used stone everywhere, but he was using stone where was necessary and where was affordable. In many other situations, he found techniques like the Marmorino that we'll see later on to give you the image of the stone without having the expense of the stone. We see here how big the villa originally was, and there's not much is left. This is the actual view from the villa. So there's pretty much, a small portion, but again, over century things happens. And now we are going back into Vicenza. It's the last of Palladian building, but definitely, not the least. We are, of course, in Palazzo Chiericati. So now we are talking about the palace, no longer the villas. We are in the city center, not in the countryside. So here, definitely, he completely elevate the tones of the projects. He's towards the end of his career. He actually dies through construction of this project. And was Girolamo that inherited some old houses overlooking what was called the Piazza dell'Isola. Piazza dell'Isola because it was a little section of Vicenza which was surrounded by the two rivers, Retrone and Bacchiglione, two small rivers that sort of flow into each other and create this sort of a river port. And the island was also the home of the stock market and timber. So think a little bit about like Wall Street is in New York City, where the trade and the market happen down and again close to where the river is, or the boats can dock. But what is also interesting about this is that Count Girolamo Chiericati was actually very influenced. It was very prominent political figures, and he managed to get the permit of adjoining those little buildings that had basically no value to build this great palace. And I sort of see the similarity of a developer in New York City, where they buy those small little houses to build a high-riser. You need to have grant and permission from the municipality, and he did that, promised them public access to this loggia and this colonnade. And basically, he got the permit to build this huge building. They became one of the masterpieces of Palladio. This will see what it was back then, and definitely we'll see what it is now. Again, we can see that although this is a palace and no longer a villa, Palladio kind of kept the same concept of elevating the main building into a podium to give it a little bit more of an importance, and sort of keeping the idea of the villa in the forefront and some of the barchesse or the wings on the side. So you can see that the two sides of the palace are actually a little bit more inwards. So it keep on playing again with this geometry. The detail and the trick that Palladio used here was in particular on the column. Contrary to the previous villa, here is using marmorino because, again, bringing the stone from the quarry into the city center is not as affordable as he would like it to use. So he actually used the Palladian stone, the Pietra di Vicenza, on the floor together with some Rosso Verona, we can see here, and in the pedestal and the capitals. Sorry, it was the capital of the columns. But the whole column is actually made with masonry stone, and only the outside is made with marmorino. Marmorino is sort of an equivalent of the battuto veneziano or the terrazzo, we'll call it here. And it's different from the stucco because the stucco is made with gesso, and definitely many of the facade are typically done with stucco because it's easier, it's lighter. But the inconvenience of stucco is that you cannot polish it. The marmorino, like the terrazzo, actually has stone pebbles in it. And when you're really polishing, the stone pebble is giving you the shine of a natural stone, basically. So he managed with this little trick to get away of what is using the natural material. Here are the interior of what it is now, Palazzo Chiericati. I believe also the museum is here, and it's certainly something that I will encourage you to see. So I kind of completed the historical part of the project, and here is like, what we did or what would Palladio do in a situation like this. And this is hopefully it's giving the message that while we are looking at Palladio, and we need to go back to him like he did with the Romans and the Greek architectures. Here is an example of a construction that Grassi definitely supplied all the natural stone. I can't remember the name of the architect, I apologize. Maybe Giacomo, you can post it into the chat. But is Palazzo Pagani and this Duchessa Margherita residence is in Piacenza, is near downtown. Is you can see that is a stone facade, but it's not only a cladding facade, it's actually a rain screen and a sunscreen. I didn't even thought that you could do sunscreen in stone. Definitely there's many other material that can more efficiently create sunscreen, but I think using the same material for the wall and the sunscreen is actually giving the facade a completely different aspects. What was challenging here is that this building was actually positioned in the city center and just in front of Palazzo Farnese, which is from the 1500, and Liceo Melchiorre Gioia. This is Palazzo Farnese, and this is the Liceo Gioia for the 1930s. So still the very fascist design of the time. And, two very unique and distinct architectural elements. So it was difficult to add a third element here. You can see here in the map from a Google map view of what it is and what it is today. The challenge was, and the constraint was, so one was architecture and landscaping, but at the same time was the typical challenge that any customer is giving to you as an architect. It's like, hey, I'm giving you the money to build me something where I can have some tenants that can pay me rent. So you also have to create something. And in this particular case, I believe there are offices in the ground floor, and the upper floor, shops and residents. So 3 different type of constructions in the same buildings. We can see here the reflection and some of the details of how this been achieved, and some of the challenge of the facade. I'm not going to go too much into the technical aspects, first of all, because I'm not prepared, but also it's not the topic of this seminar. The idea is to have this event keep on going, like I said, for the all of next year. So we need to keep something in the pipeline. And the concept is also to go more technical in what can be done with the stone. We just give you here a preview of what is a rain screen. And this is mechanical fastening with the stud that can be stainless steel, or nowadays even aluminum. I believe this one was done in aluminum for the most part. So there's a lot actually that needs to be discussed. I'll just stay on the architectural and design side, where the stone used actually is a combination, I believe was the Grigio Alpi, and I apologize, Giacomo, but I can't remember the other one. And all of them has the bucciardato finishes that gives a little bit of the antique effect that needed to match the existing build of the previous buildings. Although, not trying to copy and replicate something old, but giving a new buildings with a sort of an antique flair. So this is what Palladio hopefully did, if it was done in his time, and hopefully we respect it in the same way. We have a similar challenge nowadays, and I'll let Giacomo speak about that. So Giacomo, if you want to take over the screen and the microphone.
Thank you.
You want me to stop the sharing here?
Yeah. Thank you, Giorgio, because this webinar was very tough, and you skip very nothing. You have done a good job.
Thank you.
Because what was not easy at all. This was many information that I put inside, and we have got another challenge here from Palladio. This is maybe you recognize this as Villa Barbaran. Villa Barbaran belongs now to the Grassi company, and we are now facing another challenge that we should restore this building, and we have to preserve what Palladio have done here. We have got many little things to reestablish, and now one of the job we have to do here is to fill and consolidate the architectural elements we have got now. But if you would like to know more about, you can visit the website, and you can stay with us, because maybe in the next webinar, the next one, I don't know, but we will talk more about this kind of operation. Okay. Thank you, Giorgio, for the moment.
No, thank you. Thank you. I don't know if there's any things. I saw a lot of messages in the chat. I just was focusing on presenting, so I couldn't even see the faces, behind. I kind of enjoy a little bit now to see how many people are here. I think now is the time to open the microphone. If somebody has some question, we are available, or if there's something more in the chat that we need to respond. Bravo on saving our history.
There was a few questions that Giacomo already replied, either privately or directly, on the chat here to everybody. I was just curious because it's a while that we, meet here, and if there is anybody that really likes to tell something about their experience with stone. I know that Blanca, for example, has used that, and she already shared that she was happy with the result that we did together, because I know her. I've been visiting her job site, and she has a nice, she did a nice project. I don't know if there is anybody who wants to share his experience with ventilated wall, or there is somebody who is coming out. So there's Peter, who says we're actually doing a new building facade with both bricks and stone, granite. He has not gotten into details. And yes, by the way, of course, if there is any kind of question or specific question on specific, project that you have, of course, we are ready to discuss with you also in a separate place. Of course, not here with all together, but of course, we are here for you. I know, because it's something new, we have done a lot of ventilated facade, especially in Europe, just in the United States in very different ways. And that's why we were also thinking about making something more technical. We were talking about future development of this kind of webinar, also to go more technicals on these kind of things. If you have any kind of comments on that, feel free to talk about that.
If I can suggest, I just want to remind, and I don't have in front of me the details, but Atlantic Link, in conjunction with Grassi Pietre, is happy to sponsor this event in September. We will be sort of started as we go, so we haven't kind of formalized anything yet, but we will work towards that. And like we said, we have this incentive. We'll try to promote what we are doing as much as possible, and we'll love to have more projects over here in the United States, where we are relatively new. But hopefully the goal of this webinar is to show you that we know what we are doing, and we are competent in what we are doing with stone. And building in Italy or building in the United States is not much of a difference. So with that in mind, we'll welcome anything that you want to text or email us in private, and we keep the conversation going this way. Definitely it's important to have subjects for 2021, because I think we pretty much squeeze Palladio to the limit. I don't know what else I know Giacomo can get out of his hat. But I think there's also curiosity for applications for use. Many, I notice, at least in my presentation, there's so much ignorance on the stone and the capability of what can be done in stone, and ignorance in the right way, that we will be more than happy to present. And sometimes just a little detail, so used in a different way, can create a little bit of a difference, and sometimes be more economical than many of the man-made product. With that being said, I don't want to take any more of anybody's time.
Yes.
And
there are a pair of questions here that I don't know if Giacomo, were you able to answer or not. That was one regarding the stone, if it needs some kind of a sustain or reinforce. It depends on the dimension. Basically, just to make it quick, it needs a study. There's no yes or no reply. There is a study, an engineer that makes a calculation. So if you have any kind of request, a specific request, we will get in touch about that. And Oh, there is.
I just see a good one from Eric.
Yeah.
You want to read that? Or?
Well, if you want to read that, it's okay.
Sure. Much of the conversation was around this cost of stone. In my experience, most cost of architectural stone is now in the fabrication. We have seen almost 100% of our projects that involve architectural stone have the production moved to China and Asia. If Palladio was creative for his time, how can we be creative with fabrication cost in our time? Well, great question. I keep on banging my head, and I don't know why everybody's asking me, give me the cost of the slab. If we can fabricate in Italy, we are so much more competitive. And this is exactly what I said about there's a lot of ignorance, assuming that China is the only cheap. And I mean, cheap is not necessarily, cheap is a bad word, economical. But, you know, Palladio was the first one to try to save money. And this what we all have to do. What I'm trying to explain and what we're trying to convey here is that if we can fabricate in Italy, and there's some little tricks, we can actually make production so much more affordable than shipping the slab over here. This is probably becoming a little bit too technical to do into a webinar, but we'll be happy to discuss this. It's one of my passion. It kills me seeing that I'm being asked to quote large slab because everything has to be large and perfect over here. And then the fabricator here has to cut and throw it out. You have the cost of a premium slab, the cost of transportation, the cost of a fabricator here that is much more expensive than in Italy. We are not trying to cut out the fabricator here, which is our customer, because he needs to adapt the cut to size done in Italy over here. But if you look at Hudson Yard, most of this is done in Italy. Most of the project done in Italy. There's just a mentality that China is cheaper, but China is actually cheaper on mass production. What we are trying to do here is more of a tailor side kind of project. China is very effective when we are talking about a honeycomb sandwich, which is something that we can do it in Italy too, and probably, you know, a huge building, not at the cost saving of China, but, you know, I don't know, a multifamily project, I think even Italy can be more competitive. So there's a lot to discuss here. It's just a matter of, you know, finding the right arguments, and this is a great point for future conversation, I think.
Anyway, there are a few people who just say thanks. Thanks for everybody. Again, if you have any kind of question, you have our email, you have Giorgio's email, feel free to get in touch. And again, keep us posted about your new project. That's why we're here at the end. And Giorgio, you did a great job today. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, everybody. And I hope to see you in 3 weeks, December 11th. Beautiful. Stay safe. And
bye-bye.
Bye-bye.